Alright guys, we're going to be doing some practice for this Monday and Tuesday on equations, standard form, and something called point-slope form. These should all be things you're covering in your Algebra 1 class right now. So those three things we're going to be talking about. They should look pretty familiar as we go through. So just some basic equation solving practice, trying to knock some of the rust off after spring break. We'll just do a quick example. Let's solve 4y equals 3, or plus 3 equals minus 5. So we know we want to get y by itself, or we've got 3 added to this side, so let's take 3 away from both sides. Let's subtract 3 on both sides. So this 3 is going to cancel with that negative 3, and we have negative 5 minus 3. That gives us negative 8, so we have negative 8 equals 4y. And then we're going to simply divide both sides by 4, because it's 4 times y. So dividing both sides by 4, and we end up with those 4's canceling, and we have 8 over 4. We get y equals negative 2. Pretty simple first example there. Let's do a slightly more complicated one. We're going to have to combine like terms here. So we have this one, negative 38 equals 7w plus 17 minus 12w. So you notice right away we have two terms that have w's in them. So we need to combine those. So we have positive 7w and negative 12w. If you add positive 7 plus negative 12, you get negative 5w by combining like terms. So we have 17 that just goes along, minus 5w. And this is just a two-step equation we can solve like the previous example. So we need to get this 17 out of there to get our w alone. So we'll subtract 17 on both sides. And we have left on this side, if you do the arithmetic, negative 55 equals negative 5w. We simply divide both sides by negative 5, and we get w equals 11. Again, those negative 5's will cancel. On this side, we have negative 55 over negative 5. That cancels out. The negatives do, and we get just 11. So w equals 11 there. Next, a quick review of what standard form is. This is something you should be covering or have covered in your Algebra 1 class. So standard form is like this. We take an equation and it has two variables, x and y, and we want to rearrange it no matter how it starts to look like this. Ax plus by equals c. And there's two other rules that we use with standard form. First, there's no fractions allowed, which means that's the same as saying only integers. So we can't use numbers like 1/2 or 3/4, but we can use numbers like 1, 2, or negative 5, for example. Those are integers. Additionally, a out front, the term that's something times x, it has to be a positive number. So if either we don't have, if we have fractions or if we have a negative number out front, we have to do some extra work to get things properly into standard form. So let's take a quick look at a few examples. We have 2x plus 3y equals 4. Let's check our three things we need. So first, is it ax plus by equals c? It is. We've got 2 as the a, 3 as the b, and c is 4. We don't have any fractions, and a is positive. So yes, that one is. We'll come back and double check. So this next one, is this in standard form? Well, right away there's a red flag. We see a fraction. Anytime you see a fraction, we know right away we're not in standard form. So that's a no. Finally, negative 7x plus 3/4 y equals 5 over 2. There's a lot wrong with this one, at least in terms of putting it in standard form. We have ax plus by, but we've got fractions, both at 3/4 and 5/2, and we have this negative out in front of the 7. So we'll talk in a moment about how we're actually going to correct that and put it into standard form. So this one is yes, it meets all three criteria. This one is no, 1/2 is a fraction, that's no good. And finally, so to clear that, here's what we need to do. If we multiply everything by the common denominator, here that happens to be a 2, so we're going to multiply by 2, that's going to cancel out our fractions, and what we're going to have left over is actually going to be in standard form. So the 2 gets distributed times 1/2, we get just 1 out in front of the x. The 2 times 6 is 12y, and on this side we also have to do times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. So this one right here is correctly in standard form. Let's fix number 3. So we said no, it's not in standard form. We have both the negative out in front, and we can't have any fractions. So in order to do that, this is a little bit more involved, but in order to get rid of the negative out in front of the 7, I'm just going to multiply by a negative. And then to get rid of the fraction, we multiply by the common denominator. Here that happens to be 4. So putting that together, multiplying by a negative and multiplying by 4, we just multiply both sides by negative 4. That's how we'll clear our fractions. So in order to do that, we'll just distribute. So you have a positive 28 because you have those two negatives, they cancel. You have negative 4 times positive 4 on the bottom, those cancel, and we just have negative 3y left, and then finally the negative 4 cancels with the 2 and gives us 5 times negative 2, that's negative 10. So here is a quick example of how to clear up and get things into standard form. So let's take this first one as an example. I took this from an example from Alex. It'll be just like the one on your assignment. So let's put this into standard form. You'll notice we have a parentheses over here. So the first thing we should do is distribute. So I just distribute the negative 3 into both terms. Be careful there, negative times negative gives us positive 6. Combine like terms. To do that, we need to add 4 to both sides. Let's get this 4 over with this 6. So if we add 4 to both sides, the 4 cancels here, and we end up with 4 plus 6, that's 10. And now we want to get this term that has the x in it over with the y. So if we want to rearrange it, ax plus by equals c. To do that, we add 3x to both sides. When we do that, that cancels this 3x over here, this negative 3x, and it moves it over there. So we have 3x plus y equals 4. Let's check our rules. Do we have ax plus by equals c? Yes, we do. Do we have any fractions? No, we do not. Do we have any negative numbers out in front of a? No, we don't. So we are all good. Check for integers. A is positive. Yep. So yes, we are in standard form. That was the answer to this question. How do you take this equation and put it into standard form here? Okay. Let's do another quick example. It's going to be very similar with one minor change. See if you can do it. All right, so first we're going to distribute. So we get 2x minus 12, just like before. Now we combine like terms, just like before. So moving this negative 2 over with the negative 12. So add 2 to both sides. So we add 2, negative 12 plus 2, that's negative 10. And then we need to move this 2x over with our friend y. So subtract 2x on both sides. That moves it over here. Negative 2x plus y equals 10. Now remember, we check for integers. Yep, no fractions. Is a positive? No, it's not. It's negative. So what we need to do is multiply everything by negative 1. So get rid of the negative, multiply by negative 1. And we do that. We multiply each term. It just changes its sign. So this goes from negative to positive, positive to negative, positive to negative. And that's the correct answer. We are in standard form. All right. Last thing we're going to talk about is point slope form. We're going to have some practice, 2 different types of practice with that today. First, we have point slope form. It looks like this. It's y minus y1 equals m times this whole quantity, x minus x1. So the numbers that we're going to plug in, we're going to leave x and y alone, but we'll plug in a number for slope, and we'll plug in the points x1 and y1 into our equation. This is really nice when it comes to graphing, and you'll see that as we move forward, and you'll definitely see that in your algebra classes. So let's take an example. In this example, we have y minus 3. Notice the y1 is in the place where the 3 is, so that's our y1 coordinate. Okay, the m is negative 4/3, that's the slope of our line. And then the x coordinate is 5. Now, it can get a little confusing with these negatives, so we'll do some examples to make sure you feel pretty comfortable. So our slope is negative 4/3, as we said. That's the m term right there. And then our point, the x term right here, is 5. That goes in front. Remember, it goes x, y. And our y term is simply 3. Continuing along, let's do an example. So here's our point slope form. Our slope is m. Our point is x1, y1. And here's another quick example. Okay, so what would the slope be here? Well, I'm sorry. So our y term is negative 5. Our x term is, our y term is 5. Because of that negative, we just leave the 5 alone. Our x term is negative 7 because we've got an extra negative making this positive, and then our m is 1/2. Our slope is 1/2. So our x point here, we've got an extra negative sign. So negative 7 minus 7, that gives us positive 7. And then we've got a 5 there, our y1 term. All right, so this is how you're going to see the questions asked in Alex. I just retyped it. So this is a line passes through the point 4, negative 8, and has the slope of negative 4/5. It wants us to write the equation in point slope form. So the nice thing here is we don't have to do any of that rearranging. We just leave it in point slope form and we're done. So here is the original point slope form, and all you're going to do is take the y1 and plug it in for y1. You're going to take the m and plug it in for m, the slope, and take the x term and plug it in for x. So when you do that, I'll do it with parentheses so you can see what's going on. You have y minus negative 8 equals negative 5 over 4 times all of this, x minus 4. So this becomes a positive. This we just leave alone, and we have a negative 4. So that is our simplified point slope form. That would be our correct answer right here. Okay. Let's do another quick example. Same type of deal. A line passes through a point, negative 2, 1, and has a slope of 5 over 2. Write an equation in ax plus by equals c for this line. And you want integers for a, b, and c. So we're actually going to do two different things here. We're going to put it into point slope form and then rewrite our equation in standard form. This is how it will be asked on ALEKS. Okay, so first write it in point slope form, then rearrange it into standard form. Okay, so here is point slope form. On this slide, we'll just put it in point slope form. On the next slide, we'll convert it into point slope form. So the y goes right here, the slope goes right here, and the x goes right there. Plug everything in, so y minus 1, that's the y term, equals 5 halves, that's the slope, minus, or all times, x minus negative 2. Those two negatives make a positive. So we have y minus 1 equals 5 halves, x plus 2. On the next slide, we're going to rearrange it now into ax plus by equals c, standard form. So we're going to rearrange it into standard form. Remember, no fractions and no negative signs out front. So the first thing we're going to do is clear the fractions by multiplying by 2 on both sides, kind of like we did before. So if we multiply absolutely everything by 2, that cancels this 2 with that 2, clears our fractions, and everybody else just gets multiplied by 2. So 2 times y gives us 2y, 2 times negative 1 gives us negative 2. This 5 halves cancels out, and then because we've already multiplied by this whole side, we just leave it alone. So now we need to distribute. 5 times x is 5x, plus 5 times 2, that's 10, and this left side just stays the same. Now we need to combine like terms, add 2 to both sides. So we get 2y equals 5x plus 12. And then finally, we rearrange this so that we have 5x on both sides. I need to subtract 5x on both sides. I have negative 5x plus 2y equals 12. Now remember, in standard form, no negatives out front. And so we need to multiply everything by negative 1. And when we do that, that just switches all the signs, and we're left with our final correct answer. All right, so that is all I have for you all right now. Remember to visit me in office hours or email me if you would like to ask me questions or anything along those lines. You also remember you have unlimited attempts at this assignment on ALEKS, so do your best and let me know if you need any help. Thanks, guys.